All right, Vortex Nation, how's it going, everybody? We are here with a couple of new guests. One guest that's been on a couple of times before. We are sans Mark Boardman. Again, there's been a couple of podcasts actually lately without Mark, and he will come back. Don't worry. He's just in Alaska currently hunting black bear, I believe. So that's exciting for him. But we wanted to bring up the topic of PRS. And you know Mark, he's always hunting anyway, so he'll be all right, leaving the competition stuff up to the rest of us. So we want to chat about PRS. So we've chatted about it once before. We want to take a deeper dive on it. Got a couple of great guests, like we said here before, who brought up the topic of kind of preparing for a match. And even if you're not a PRS shooter yourself, just preparing kind of to shoot precision, to shoot long range, and you know any form of competition probably this can really apply to. So, like I said, we got Jimmy here on the mic. We got Nick Laufenberg, who's been on before. And then our two new guests, we have Regina Milkovich and Jim C. And actually, Regina's joining us from Arizona via the computer here. Crazy what technology can do. And then Jim is local to us, so he is here in the flesh. We will go by alphabetical order, which you've done in the past, and let them introduce themselves. And I believe J becomes before R, if my alphabet hasn't failed me in my head. So we'll let Jim go first.
My name's Jim C. I've been shooting my whole life, and I started shooting F-class in probably 08, and I did that up until about 2012, where I shot in nationals and in state-level finales in Wisconsin. And actually, it kind of ties into how I got hooked up with Vortex. Is this creepy dude was looking through my window in my gunsmithing shop in Pittsville one day, and it was Scott Parks.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, that's fitting.
And so he came in, became a customer, and he actually got me to my first type of tactical field match down in Oklahoma in 2011, and then actually drove me to my first PRS match in 2012. And the funny story out of that is he says, "How you going to do?" And I says, "I'm shooting for a top 5," and he started laughing at me. And I said, "Okay, I'll take that down to a top 10 then." And he still laughed at me because he thought, "You don't know what you're getting into." And I ended up finishing 4th. So,
there you go.
And in the end, I got the last laugh.
In your face, Scott. But man, yeah, to have Scott peering in your window, that would be
horrifying.
I think I would call the police for Sasquatch.
Probably.
Yeah. So he was kind of the driving force behind me getting into this sport. And we've had a friendship now for years, and he's a great guy, and he's always Scott, along with Nick and Vortex Optics, has always supported us shooters really well. So, the relationship has just blossomed and grew for the last 10 years.
Cool. And you were just saying, actually, prior to this too, that you direct matches too, right?
Yeah, me and Regina both,
Sweet.
Run matches. My first big match was last year. I did a PRS match in Iowa. I had run, smaller matches. Previous to that in Iowa, I started doing some training classes in 2013. So I'm pretty tied into the shooting industry portion of the precision rifle kind of thing. And I just enjoy it. I do training as well. It's probably the thing I enjoy the most is the training. Second is probably running matches, and third is probably actually shooting.
Okay. That's awesome. That's cool. And Regina, how about you get a chance here at Spin and introducing yourself to the listeners out there?
We can let Jim just sell himself short either. The Border Wars series was his brainchild, right? And that is a absolutely brilliant way to get new shooters involved in competitive shooting. So saying you run club matches, well, the Border Wars is a little bigger than that.
Yeah. So that was something. I left Wisconsin, right? I went to Oklahoma for a couple of years, worked for Surgeon Rifles, came back up here in 2015, and I actually felt like I kind of neglected the area when I left, because I was like, me and Scott were the only guys in the Midwest that shot PRS.
Yeah.
And so when I got here, the first thing I did was I found some place in Iowa I could shoot, and they had 465 yards. Well, now it's out to 1,100 yards, and we're running 2-day events there.
Really?
Yeah, and
Wow.
I found every match director in all the surrounding states I could that had anything to shoot on. Some of them are 600-yard F-class ranges. Some of them are just farm fields, some of them are cow pastures, and I organized a bunch of match directors in different states, and we started a series. In the first year, we had 15 matches, and then last year we had 23 or 24, and I think this year we got about the same number. But it's basically a one-day series. I don't know what we are, 11 states now. And we're just trying to make a highly competitive 2-day series to drive competition outside the basic club level where you see the same 30 or 40 guys, every month. And so more competition with sponsor support. And it's kind of a stepping stone into the 2-day national level stuff because we know there's plenty of guys out there that can't afford to travel. Mm-hmm. And there's some guys that exclusively shoot club matches at 1 or 2 clubs that are within an hour of their house. The idea of this was to be highly competitive, have a series finale, and get participants from multiple states to come to the matches and make it more like a big event and higher competition level, yet not be so expensive. Our average match fee is $50.
Well, that's solid.
And we're going to shoot 80 to 100 rounds in one day, and we're going to have a prize table that's worth $5,000 to $7,000 at every match. And for a $50 membership at the beginning of the year, I don't know how we can make it any more affordable for guys to come shoot.
Right. So Regina wasn't lying there when she said that basically you had the understatement of the year earlier on when you just said you did a couple of matches. That's pretty impressive. And yeah, I was actually wondering if you were talking about the Border Wars there because I've heard a lot about them. It's a sweet series.
And so the news this year was we kind of teamed up with the NRL to help us with the score tracking because I lost my partner that was kind of helping me with that the last couple of years. And the NRL took us on, and basically we're letting this thing blossom into what will be a national regional. So we'll have 6 regions in the country. Regina will be in one. And I think, are you working a little bit down there to try and get something going? Or has that been slow going?
Yeah, we've got one guy in, I can't remember if he's in Yuma or Kingman. I think he's in Yuma that is heading up the Southwest because I'm the regional director for the Southwest for the PRS, and it was too much for me to do both. So he's taking on the Border Wars part.
Yeah. So it picked up really well in the South Central, and they're running a good series this year. We got ours up here. Hopefully the other regions kind of pick up on it and want to bridge into it. And then the goal is eventually to have top regional shooters go to a national that the NRL will host, and it'll rotate around to each region every year in a different region. And basically it'll be an individual match, but in the end, they can take all the shooters in their region, tally up their scores, divide by the number of shooters, and we can find the best region in the country.
Oh, cool. Nice.
So kind of have a grudge match that way too. And I think it'll go really well. I think we're probably another year away from that, but we'll get there. And I think it's just a good grassroots way to grow the competition. It's above club level, club series stuff, and it's just under the national stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like a really cool way to do it.
It's actually funny. Is my first match I ever went to was a Border Wars match, and the first national match I ever went to was the Rampage last year in Iowa.
Yeah.
So
sweet.
Yeah.
So Regina, now you get your shot at introducing yourself here. Letting people know who you are, any fun facts about you or anything like that?
I got tricked into the sport. My husband shoots a lot of stuff, 3-gun, pistol, just about everything. And all those sports look too fast for me. So I broke my wrist while he's at the SHOT Show. Sake bombers are dangerous things.
Noted.
He put me on a spotting scope, and I was amazed that people were hitting targets at 400 yards away at this big match that his club ran, and that was in February of 2009. So he bought me a rifle and took me to the range, taught me how to use it, some basic safety stuff, and then told me I was shooting a match the next day. And that was November of 2009. So I've been shooting matches since then. Never really had any of the go out planking, hanging out with your friends kind of stuff. I've just been competing the whole time.
What was that first match like? That's like throwing you to the wolves.
It was a 1-day match, and our club now gets 80 shooters with a 20-person wait list, but at the time we had like 10 people that showed up. So I think it was 4th But I wasn't doing anything. He was dialing everything. All I had to do was put the crosshair center and pull the trigger. Then they started teaching me how to read the reticle and how to dial stuff. And when I started beating them consistently, then they asked if I saw stuff like my heartbeat in the crosshairs. All the stuff that I was like, no, not until now. So they leveled the playing field a little bit on me. My first 2-day match was NorCal in 2010, and I was 58th out of 59 shooters, shooting a right-handed 308 at sea level. It was a really bad combination because I'm left-handed. So yeah, that was my first 2-day in 2010, and I don't even know how many matches I've shot since then. I helped run the Arizona club, the one out of Phoenix, PRS, and we put on the Tactical Precision Rifle Challenge almost every year. We've gone to 2 years now because it's just too much work for the small crew that's putting everything together. So our last one is this past November, but our club matches have been selling out like crazy. I don't know what's going on. Somebody tipped the scales, and we limited it to 80 because we have about 80 yards of usable space to fit all those people in. So 80 people, and yeah, we've sold it every month since January. 20 to 25 people on the wait list every month. It's kind of ridiculous, actually. I mean, we like it. It's cool. 40% are brand new shooters. So we've been squatting specifically now. Like we get a pro or a semi-pro or whatever. We ask the shooters what their skill set is before they sign up, so we can get the pros and semi-pros kind of split out, so that it's not one experienced person helping 8 newbies on trying to find targets and whatnot. So it also helps us teach them how to spot, how to run a clock, how to run the score sheet. So we're creating competent RO staff for our big match, which feeds into our big match, actually, which is pretty cool. So I have the unique distinction of being the only woman to win 2 national level matches. So that's kind of cool. I don't think I've won nearly as many as Jim has, but still I get bragging rights. So
You're right. You're right on my heels. I'm only one ahead of you.
That's super cool. It's also really cool just from hearing Jim, you talk about the grassroots level stuff that you're working on, and then hearing that, Regina over there, you got a club that's busting at the seams of people trying to get in. It's cool to hear that not only this sport, but you hear other sports too as well growing rapidly, and seeing more and more people come out that are new shooters, just getting into using a rifle and competing with it, and getting a good, very fun and safe and responsible and just a cool use out of a firearm, rather than just kind of heading to the range and just kind of lobbing a couple pills down range and just calling it a day. That's cool. Now, you guys had brought up, because we were discussing a PRS podcast, and a number of folks brought up their preparedness or preparing for a match or to shoot in this level or this style of competition. And mental preparedness had come up a couple of times. And the first time I saw that, I remember thinking to myself, oh, come on, mental preparedness, don't you just show up and shoot, And my mind has since changed. So don't worry there. So I don't think I can argue against you from everything I've heard about it, all the mental preparedness that goes into doing this kind of thing. But I think that a lot of people might be in a similar boat to where I was, where they think, how can you mentally prepare to just go shoot? Don't you just show up and do it? So what goes into that? I'd love to hear you guys discuss it a little bit more for other listeners out there. Mental preparedness for PRS. Jim, I think you're pretty excited and emotional about this.
I think the biggest problem with mental preparedness is there needs to be a plan. But if you go back to my history, I went to my first PRS match and finished 4th. And why? Because there was no expectation. Mm-hmm. Right? I set one going down there, but the reality was I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't understand the anxiety the match could create. I didn't put a whole lot of pressure on myself to perform. I can distinctly remember Scott telling me, hey, don't worry about finishing under time. Just make sure every round you shoot hits the target. And I probably timed out of the majority of those stages and I still finished 4th.
Really?
It's just when I shot, I didn't miss. And, after that, I went to some matches, and now there's this level I'm supposed to perform at. I've already set the baseline, and now I go there and I have all this anxiety. I walk up to a stage and my heart starts racing. The RO hasn't even said go yet, and I can feel my heart about jumping out of my chest. And, that's a body function, but it's controlled by your brain. And if you can't control that part of it, you'll never get to where you need to be. Mm-hmm. I started doing specific practice regimens myself to try and counteract that. And I don't know if Regina did these or not, but is one of the things I did was every time I went to a range or my range or a range to practice, the first thing I did was I took my phone out, set it to 2 minutes, and I picked, okay, this is going to be my 10-shot stage. I'm going to shoot off 2 shots off of this, and there, and I'm going to set the clock, and cold shooter, cold bore, I'm going to shoot a stage. And you only have one first stage in a match.
Right.
Okay, and if you shoot 10 matches a year, that was 10 first stages. Well, if I practice 20 times a year, I now get 30 practice sessions in to try and control the nerves and the anxiety, and that really helped me. I mean, I don't know if Regina did something similar, but that was one of the biggest stepping stones I took to just control the jitters.
Yeah. Yeah,
I totally stole that idea, Jim. The first time I heard you talk about it, I was like, and I'm taking notes. I'll be doing that next time I go out.
Oh, yeah. People talk about beginner's luck all the time, and I don't know how much of it is luck and how much of it is just like I can't think of the proper term for it, maybe beginner's freedom or something like that, because just like you were saying, when you're just starting out, there's zero expectation. When I go out to the playground or whatever with a couple buddies and we're playing pickup basketball, I feel like Michael Jordan out there. And then all of a sudden, it's like, I remember back in high school, you'd put me in a real game and I'd freeze up. It was like tripping over myself. I couldn't walk and dribble basketball at the same time. It's just because all of a sudden, the lights are on, you have all these expectations, there's points associated to things that you're doing, there's winning and losing, and it starts to freak you out.
And you can talk about beginner's luck and don't use me as an example of where you should be, because you got to remember I was shooting competitively in F-class for 5 years. I had all the skills. I was building custom rifles for the same amount of time, so I was shooting a lot of very accurate rifles. I had all the hand loading skills already as a baseline. So I went in there with all the equipment, all the necessary skills to load and shoot, but I just didn't let my head get in my own way. And that's what a lot of new shooters do. It's what a lot of experienced shooters do. And it's one of the things I talk about in my training classes. We spend the second day lecturing on the mental aspect of this sport, because it is a big part of it.
It's a huge part of it. I notice after the first stage of every match I go to, if I have a great first stage, I feel like that entire day is I feel wonderful. And then if I have a bad first stage, it's really hard to get my head out of there.
What do you do in that case? Let's say you have a bad first stage.
Just keep on trying, I guess. I don't really have a good way of getting out of it. That's something I should probably read a book on or something. I don't know. I don't know what you guys do. If you ever have a bad stage,
I think Regina's got an answer for that.
She probably does.
Yeah, there is a book. With Winning in Mind from Lanny Basham.
I actually own the book. I just haven't got a chance to read it yet.
Yeah, owning it and reading it
are two very different things. Yes.
Yeah, different outcomes.
It's weird how
totally
that works.
Yeah, that's my
Or
airplane
get the
book,
audio
but the Dramamine always kicks in on the airplane before I can pull the book out of my backpack, unfortunately.
Wow. So what does the book tell you to do?
Well, Lanny Basham is a Olympic gold medalist, and his book essentially, what he did was talk to a bunch of winners and said, what did you do? How did you go into this match? And predominantly what he found was that they went into the match knowing they were going to win, that they'd already practiced all the skills to win the match. It was just a mental thing at that point. So like he'd go and go shoot with a buddy or whatever, and they're dry firing on the small bore range or whatever. And the guys dry firing, can't get the perfect kneeling shot or whatever, but never live fires. And he's already gone through all of his ammo. He's like, you haven't even fired a shot yet. And he said, well, because it's not perfect. I'm not going to start live firing until it's perfect. Or going through mental practice on the same stuff that Jim's talking about, going to the range and practicing the stage right away. Well, if you can't get to the range, then dry fire is your next best option. If you can't do that, then mentally going through those stages, especially the ones you screw up at a match a whole bunch, that you screw up at a match. Well, if you already know, I can only get 4 out of 8 on this stage that we shoot every month. So I'm doomed to keep doing that. Well, if you think that you're doomed to keep doing that, you're going to be doomed to keep doing that. But if you can think through it and think, well, what did I do wrong? All right, well, I didn't use the corner on this position. Well, I'm going to do that this next time. And I'm going to practice it mentally, how I'm going to use that, where I need to move to make up time. Then you dry fire it on the clock and see where you're making up time there, where you're losing time. Take it to the range to practice live fire and do the same thing. So when you go to the match the next time, then you clean it. It's just building on skills. Nobody starts off being Johnny Hot Rod, even like what Jim said. He was shooting lots of stuff before that. Another book that I've read called The Talent Code says the same thing. Says nobody's born brilliant. We all have skills that we're building on, small little steps that then become big steps that become big results. If that makes sense. 7-minute lull in the conversation.
No, that was perfect. That was perfect.
I'll expound on that a little bit, where Regina says the winners go in knowing they're going to win the match. It was funny because I started in 12, shot 12, 13, 14. In 3 years, my highest finish was a second. I was always solid. In those 3 years, I was in the top 15 at the season finale for my season rank. And in those 3 years, I finished the finale in the top 10. Could never break into that win, though, and it was a struggle. And I tell the guys that take the class the same thing. Sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves for that win. We need to stop worrying about the win. I always say, set a goal. My goal was always top 10. Then I realized that's an unrealistic expectation because I wasn't a top 10 shooter at the time. I got lucky once. And then my goal was always a top 20. And I did that for about 6 months. Then I got back to top 10. I started getting this established a goal. Now I'm going to work towards that goal. Now I accomplished it. Now let's set a new goal. And eventually it was a top 5, and I never really expected to win. I always said, if my goal is the top 5, one day I'm going to win. And it just so happens I was driving to Rifles Only in 2015 with Thomas Merez, and Thomas goes, Jimmy, yeah, you're going to win this match. And I go, why do you say that? Because it's your time.
Wow, is this like, I feel like this is straight out of a movie.
Right. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, I would always analyze, analytical. I'm like, okay, so who's the top 10 shooters that are going to be there? Da-da-da-da-da. I go, you know what? You're right, Thomas. If I shoot my best and they leave a little room, I can beat every one of them guys. And it literally came down to the last stage of the match. And that's the stage I beat the second place guy Jonathan Berry at and won the match. Well, fast forward a few months, we go to the Heat Stroke Open. I'm doing a training class off-site on a different range, about 5 miles away from where the Heat Stroke is on Thursday, Friday. And one of the guys comes up to me and he goes, this is my match. I'm going to win this match. And I said, there's not a chance, dude. I told him, I said, I'm taking this one home. I hadn't shot for 2 days at that train-up, but I told him, my stuff is running so good, I'm winning this match. That's all fine and dandy. Day one, I'm in 7th or 8th place, which is where I always like to be.
No, you're saying you don't like to be first at the end of day one.
Because when you're first after the end of day one, you've got everything to lose and nothing to gain.
Right.
And the pressure of that, I've been in that boat 3 times, and it never came out well for me. This particular match, I was staying with one of the guys that was in the lead, and he took the class, the train up, and I said, hey, congratulations, good shooting. He had never won his first PRS match yet either. Just so happens that this guy is a phenom. It's Matt Brousseau. And I told him, I said, Matt, I'm coming for you tomorrow. And you asked the question, what do you do after you have a bad stage? Well, Sunday was a disaster when I started. First shooter on a wobbly bench at Prairie Dogs. First, you had 10 rounds. First round impact was worth 2 points. Second round impact was worth 1, but you had 10 rounds to shoot 5 prairie dogs. They started in the 200 and worked out to 700. The sun was still behind the clouds. We had a nasty switchy tailwind. I'm on this bench. I shoot at the first prairie dog, miss right. Held center and I missed right. So I hold left and hit him, 1 point. I go to the second prairie dog that's like 3-something. I hold left edge, I hit left edge. I hold center, I hit right. I hold left, I hit left. I hold center, I hit left again. I hold right, I hit right. I'm done. And maybe I went too many rights and lefts, but
Yeah.
8 rounds at that next prairie dog, never touched him. This is the day I'm supposed to come back and win the match from 8th place, and I shoot a 1 out of 10.
Whew.
And now what do? Because that is about the biggest kick in the gonads that you're going to get at the second day. And a lot of guys would say, oh, forget about it. I'm never one to forget about it. I want to know what I did or what happened. So I basically grabbed my stuff, probably said some choice words, sat down by my pack, dropped everything on the ground, and I sat there, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to cool my head and I'm going to reflect. And I told myself that day, I can remember it like it was yesterday, okay, you got first draw in the stage. You had no mirage. You had a 15-mile-an-hour tailwind. You seen every bullet land. You corrected for every impact. What could have I done different? And in hindsight, I told myself, the only thing I really could have done was just hold center, slow my cadence of shots, and one of them would have hit. I probably panicked a little bit and probably rushed, but really I should have just slowed down, held center, shot. And I probably hit it within 3, just the way the wind was going back and forth. And I didn't do that. And so I told myself, your gun's shooting good. That was one little mistake you can overcome. I went on to shoot the next stage. It went out to 1,000 yards. They were half IPSCs. And they changed the direction of fire, so it was in a crosswind, 15-mile-an-hour crosswind. I shot a 9 out of 10. I go on to the next stage, which was pigs out of the truck, and I shot a 10 out of 10. So at that point, I just had a disaster, analyzed it, overcame it, went on, and just carried on. Regina will tell you the same thing. At some point, for us, it just becomes, this is work, do your work.
Yeah.
And that's what you do.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. It's especially tough when you go into the situation knowing that other people have a similar mindset to you. Like when you're there the day before or after day one and somebody says they're going to win it, and you're thinking, I'm going to win it. And when you get that, I mean, you get really kind of like down to the purest form of competition. When everybody has the right mentality and they're all there, then you're really going to see who's actually the best and who's, it's not who's just a head case and totally blew it that day.
Yeah, and I don't want to cut Regina off because I know she's got something to say, but
oh, yeah.
I want to finish the story in that I ended up winning the match by 6 points.
Right on.
And so my third win, which really wasn't a 2-day match, it was the 2000, what year was it? The 16 gap grind.
That sounds right.
I got a little slap on the wrist for being a naughty Facebook boy in 2016. And there was a couple penalties that were assessed to me for being a social media clown. And one of them was I had to get squatted with new shooters and shoot and help new shooters throughout the year. And the other was I had to go shoot the gap grind. Go with an AM and shoot the gap grind. So the way they used to run the gap grind pro-am then, George's concept is great. And the first day, the pro went first, gave the AM calls and everything, and you shot as a team. And then the second day, they'd use it for, I don't know if they used it for PRS points at that point. I don't think they did. They used it as a one-day match where you didn't shoot for team points. You shot for placement, pro placement, and amateur placement. So anyway, I kind of got a penalty to go down there and shoot it. And I always wanted to shoot it, so it wasn't like it was a big deal. But one particular guy in particular came up to me when I got there and showed up, and he knew why I was there. And he goes, "Fancy seeing you here. What are you doing here?" And I go, "You know well while I'm here." And he goes, and he's like, "No." And I go, and I was like, "Well, he does." But I said, this is my exact words. I came down here to step on every swinging dick in the South. And I did. And that was 2016's win was day 2 at the gap grind.
Right on.
That's awesome.
So
That is cool.
that whole idea that the confidence thing, confidence is key in this sport. I talk about it in my class. If you're not confident, you need to get confident. If you show up at a match on Friday and you shoot groups and something's not working, don't let it grind the gears in your head. Just walk away. You usually got 3 or 4 hours to test shoot your gun on Friday. Walk away, get your head cool, think about what you're doing, go back there, lay down. Maybe the mirage went away. Maybe you're shooting through low-level mirage, whatever. Go down, shoot a few good shots, and just tell yourself, okay, equipment's running great. I'm ready. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to spank tomorrow and whatever. You're a man, right? You lie to yourself all the time. I mean, we do. Women probably do too. But if
They do.
lie to yourself. If it's not exactly right, don't tell yourself it's not exactly right. Just lie to yourself and say, yeah, everything's good. You're good. Just go out there and, pound it tomorrow. And because if you don't have confidence, you're not going anywhere.
That's true. It's a good point. Regina's been sitting there in the waiting with some good, probably more book knowledge.
You have more book knowledge. Hold on, let me from the readings of.
Yeah.
No,
Drop some literature on
Jim's
us.
right. He probably remembers there was in 2016. I was going on telling everybody, "I'm going to win this match. I'm going to win this match." Every match I went to, it didn't matter. I'm like, "I'm going to win this match." And I came in second at one. If I tied him, I would have beat Morgan by the tiebreaker. And then another match, I said the same thing, and then I won NorCal. But I was telling everybody I was going to win. My equipment was running really good then, so I was convinced of it. Last year at K&M, I wasn't quite as convinced because my group at 100 didn't look very good, but I was nailing all the rest of the targets, so I didn't worry about it. Same thing Jim said. So if I can shoot under half an inch at sight and day, then I don't worry about it. I don't adjust anything other than maybe a click or two of wind, and I end up taking it off by the end of the sight and day anyway. Because it's me. I'm positive it's me helping it go a 10th left or a 10th right. If mindset's 90 to 95% of this sport, then going and being a little cocky is not a bad thing. Getting nervous when other people talk to you afterwards, like being first after day one. I don't like being first after day one either. There's a lot of pressure on day 2 because everybody wants to come and talk to you then, and your phone will blow up if you're in the top 5 with everybody who wants to tell you what the scores are, even if you've told everyone under the sun that you don't want to know what the scores are after day 1. They all want to come and congratulate you.
Yeah, I hate being in the top 5 after day 1.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Totally sucks.
Yeah, it totally sucks.
I'm
Been there so many times.
I'm so guilty of sending guys a messenger that says, "Hey, dude, awesome shooting today. Keep it up tomorrow." When after I read the scores, and they're like,
Oh,
"What?
you're
What?
mean.
What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're sitting in first place." Really?
Wrecked.
Wrecked
You
them. Just
just might
wrecked
as
them.
well just. It's like watching a plane just get shot out of the sky.
Just tied an anchor to his foot and kicked him off the boat.
That is that's really good strategy too to do that to some people.
Psychological warfare.
What are you guys gonna do now when you're at the matches and everybody just starts coming up to you saying they're gonna win the match? Because now everybody's gonna listen to this podcast. They're just gonna start going around saying they're gonna win the match.
I'm going to say what I say. All this. I always say now. I'm like,
Nope.
dude, I hope so. Good luck.
Yep, I say the same thing.
Yeah. Savage.
Everybody needs trophies, man.
That's true.
It just depends on who wants them more. The more, I guess.
Right. Now, here's one thing I'm curious about. And so you're discussing a lot of the mental aspect of once you get to the match, trusting what you've done leading up to the match, and just executing upon it, not letting your head get in the way. Now, I've heard you guys already mention a couple things like, for example, Regina, you were talking about if you're shooting 10th left, you adjust that, but then you adjust it back because maybe it's just you screwing with something. But like when you get your 0 set, for example, and you've got, Jim, you're mentioning all this experience with hand loading and just putting together really good shooting rifles. How do you get yourself to the point where you yeah, my gear's shooting good. Like my gear's not the problem. It's if there is a problem, it's me. Like I know that in my personal experience, I'm not to that point yet. But it's because when I see everybody discussing everything that's necessary to go into setting up your gear just right, and if you pay too much attention to the forums and you read everybody talking about every gall darn thing that you need to set up on your rifle, and if you're not using this ring or if you're not using this bubble level, then you're screwed, and then it that is kind of a mental game in and of itself, sifting through all the baloney out there. And then
there's an easy fix to that, though. Sorry, I don't
what's
mean to
that now?
interrupt you.
No, please go for it.
There's an easy fix to that. Don't believe anything that you read on the internet. I mean,
unless Regina, unless it comes
right.
This podcast is going to go out on the internet, guys. So
unless it comes from Maria Regina, then it's okay to listen to.
Okay,
they're top pros in the sport for a reason. So if you see people that are doing things that you like, that you admire, then ask them. I don't know any of the guys in the sport that have ever told me to go find out the answer on my own. They've all been really helpful. Jim was real helpful to me in 2012 when I was having some issues with something. I don't even remember what I thought was wrong with my gun at the time. It's almost always the shooter, by the way. It's very rarely the equipment. Nick even knows that since we've had a little personal run-in lately about some of my equipment that is user error, turns out. But I mean, it's rarely the equipment. It's almost always the shooter. You might occasionally get a barrel that has died on you, or you got bullets that maybe the BC didn't line up right. But 9 times out of 10, it's a shooter problem, not an equipment problem. And the guys on the internet, they talk a real big game from their mom's basement. Most of those guys have never gone and done anything magnificent or spectacular other than get on the internet, have a nice little screen name, and talk a lot of smack. So until they can come and beat somebody that you respect at a match, they can stay in their mom's basement. And if they can't come out and beat you, then you shouldn't listen to their advice anyway.
And,
boom.
And if you see pictures of magneto speeds with single-digit SDs, just friggin' ignore that. Ignore it. Do not chase that. That is the. If you want to put the blinders on and crash into a tree, you chase single-digit SDs.
Which SD, for those not familiar, you're talking about standard deviation, right? So essentially,
the velocity of your bullet. How consistent is the velocity of your bullet? And obviously it's important, but for 90% of the people out there, single-digit SDs is not important at all
because their personal accuracy that they're capable of isn't even capable of showing.
They're not mentally, physically, or just skilled enough to shoot within that ammo.
Right.
I mean, and I'll tell you how unimportant it is. The last big match in Vegas, the mile target, Regina shot in front of me. I went there with a 6.5 Creedmoor. It was my first year in Iowa. I'm loading my ammo in a rental garage that's 20 degrees. And I have no time to chronograph it. What good is it to chronograph at 20 degrees when you're going to go down to Vegas and shoot in 70 degrees? So I'm literally loading that ammo up the week before the match. I never took it to the range and chronographed it. I brought my chronograph with me down there. I chronographed it on the range on Friday, and it was I can still remember I was shooting 140 grain Hornady hollow point bowtail, which is BC wise that's about the worst 140 grain bullet there is besides this Lapua CNAR. And they're just the lowest BCs. They're cheap bullets.
Yeah.
So I go down there, and it was a Creedmoor. It went 27.36 to 27.89 or something like that. Big. I mean, SDs were in the high teens to low 20s. And they gave us a stage book, and it said there's a mile target out there. So I looked out on the course of fire because it's at the practice range, and I'm like, there's a target way, way out there. I'm going to shoot at it because I have no idea what I need for mild dope. So I kind of did some calculations. I come up with 28 mils. So I dialed 20, held 8, and I shot 5 rounds at it. And I couldn't see nothing. There's no flasher on the target at the time, and it wasn't hitting. And we go to the match now. Was it Saturday or Sunday when we shot the mile? I don't remember.
I think it was Sunday.
It was 2 days later. we get there. Regina goes up there and shoots. I actually seen one of her misses at a mile when she was done. I think I was looking through somebody's spotter, but I was watching this flag behind us, and it was blowing a little bit when she was shooting, and she kind of told me what side she favored. And I go up there with this ammo that shouldn't hit anything, right? Because the SDs aren't good enough. And I go to the first target. I had a 900, 1,000, a 1,200, and a mile. And I think there were the 1,200 was a 2-footer, the mile was a 3-footer. And I listened to Regina, favored left, and missed off the left on the first target.
That's how my win calls go, by the way, for
Yeah.
just about everybody. Whatever I tell you, just don't even listen to me.
but really, I looked at this flag that's 200 yards behind us on the field, and it kind of fell off. So I just kind of did it based off what Regina said. So I thought, okay, I seen it land way past the target, but it was left. Centered it up, hit 2, and just kept running the targets on the way out there, and hit the mile target 3 times in a row.
Seriously.
Yeah, with ammo that was crap. And literally, this is how I got the dope, because I have no dope. I didn't run a Kestrel at the time. I used JBM printed ballistic charts with density altitudes on them. And
classics.
I literally told myself, Jim, what are you going to shoot at a mile? And I went, this is literally what I said to myself. I said, well, 28 mils didn't work on Friday, so I'll try 27 today.
So that were you just plucking it out of thin air?
Plucked it out of thin air. I was like, 28 didn't work, I'll try 27. Threw on 20, and if it's on video. This whole thing's on video on Connex Media did. And literally, you'll watch me shoot the first bullet, and I had to turn the power on the razor down so far to see 8 mils that I literally turned the power up because I wanted to see the bullet land if I missed, and I turn it up and it starts flashing. I'm like, man, you got to. So I turn it back down, and then I work the bolt, and it's still flashing. I'm like, well, I kind of better wait a second, because if I shoot now and I hit and it's still flashing, they might think it's the first flash. So now I'm playing mind tricks, right?
Right.
So I pause a little bit, shoot again, and I'm like, damn, it's flashing again. I work the bolt again, and I'm aiming, and I'm like, oh, I could send it. Okay, stop flashing, I'll shoot again. Boom. And it flashes again, and I'm just like, and I kind of didn't believe it. I'm picking my stuff up, and then I noticed there's a cameraman right here. And I kind of got this look on my face like, oh.
Totally planned.
Yeah.
So, see, now you're going to frustrate a bunch of people here, guys, because what you're implying is that winning or doing well actually comes down to the shooter and not all the gear. You guys are kind of you're gonna piss off a lot of people here, and I'm trying to save you guys from humiliation of implying that you can't buy wins.
You can't.
I'm trying to.
It's you can't. It's all on the shooter.
Yeah.
And if you have the skills and you practice, and it doesn't matter what cartridge you shoot. Guys want to dog this and shoot this 6mm, dog that,
Right,
whatever.
right.
I took a 308 into the PRS finale last year, and at the end of day 1, I was 3 points behind the leader, and we had 12 to 18 mile an hour winds all day.
Yeah, we
it was
crazy
pretty
wind.
sharp.
So it's, I'm an advocate of the 308. I think if you're new and you got a 308, the barrel's going to last you a long, long time. It's a great practice round, learn to manage recoil. You probably want to build it specific for the type of shooting you're doing. I mean, I'm not going to put a medium Palma barrel on my 308 and go shoot PRS with it. I want a heavy barrel. I want a good muzzle brake on it. I want it to reduce the recoil as much as I can. I have no problems most of the time spotting trace and impacts with my 308. It weighs 22 pounds. That's a lot. There's guys with 29-pound guns. There's guys with 25-pound dashers. That's, to me, is ridiculous. Because if I can take it, I actually got a 17-pound 308. I can probably spot 50% of my shots with it. Mm-hmm. It's about the fundamentals, being behind the gun, lined up straight, making sure that the recoil comes straight back, so when the recoil is gone, you're back on target. Now I can see what happens. The consensus that, I can't see my impacts with a 308 or my misses. Well, I shot a 6mm in 2012 and 13, and we didn't have flashes back then. I had hits that weren't counted. It's life, right? That's just life. You don't need to argue with the RO about it. They're not going to see them all. But when I miss with a 308 into dirt that you can't see your 6mm impact in, that 175 grain bullet, it moves the dirt. Mm-hmm. I know where I missed.
That's a good point. Yeah.
There's an advantage and a downfall to everything. And dog tack division all you want. I'm not shooting it this year. I shot it last year. I had a great time doing it. I learned a ton. Regina loves the 308. I'll let her continue on about it.
Yeah, I do actually. I just realized that my fundamentals, that I'm getting a little lazy with my 6. I took my 308 out a couple weekends ago and it beat the crap out of me because I wasn't buying my gun properly. So that was a little lesson in being lazy on some of those fundamentals. Like, I think I'm going to try this free recoil stuff I heard about on the internet. Not really, just kidding.
Free recoil. Is that like Free Wheezy when Lil Wayne went to prison?
Maybe. Yeah.
Sorry, that was something from my generation of high school.
I get dogged a lot for free recoil because I teach it in my classes.
What is free recoil?
No, I don't think Jim.
It's not really.
I like free-ish recoil.
It's free-ish recoil. It just kind of got that name because you kind of take your shoulder off the gun.
Oh.
We still control recoil in different ways by grip, either left hand, right hand. There's ways to control the recoil, and you're just absorbing it in a different way. But in training, I see it as a huge stepping stone. And a lot of trainers don't teach it. They don't want to teach it. They'll never teach it. There's a reason I teach it. It's because this is my barricade, I set a game changer bag on it with heavy fill in it. I set the rifle on it, okay? If I don't touch it, it doesn't move. It's on the target, okay? My body's not influencing it. Now, if I can brace my arm on the barricade, put my hand on top of the scope, and hold the rifle there, I can use this hand to manipulate my aim. Okay? I can keep my shoulder and cheek off the gun. I can reach in there, either a light grip on it or however you want to grab it, and I'll watch the crosshairs sit on that target. And for a new shooter who does not know what the target, what no wobble looks like off a barricade, he'll learn what no wobble looks like off a barricade. And that builds confidence. Okay? And what it does is, when you press or hard shoulder gun on a barricade and the barricade's wobbly or this, that, and the other thing, and you cannot hold the target, it comes down to, here's the target, my crosshairs are moving off of it and back onto it. Right. It becomes an exercise in trigger timing.
Yeah.
So as I come on, I start applying pressure. And if I start coming off, I stop applying the pressure. I don't release the pressure. I just stop applying. As I come back on, I start applying more pressure. Hopefully the shot breaks as I come onto the target and I hit the target. That's what the pros are doing when we cannot hold the target.
Yeah.
Okay? What a new guy does when he can't hold the target is he wobbles around and here comes the target and he goes boom and he slaps it. And he usually pulls the gun. Even if the shot went off on the, he actuated the trigger with the crosshairs on, he pulled so violently that he influenced that bullet in the direction he pulled and it missed the target.
Because we watched The Matrix, and when you do that, the bullet actually curves through there, right?
and so my goal is I want to teach you how to free recoil because I want you to ingrain in your mind a crosshair that sits on the target, and then all you need to think about is this trigger squeeze needs to be perfect. Okay? And what I'm doing is free recoil is training your trigger squeeze to be perfect. Because if you miss, the only component there is I'm holding the target. If I miss, it's either wind, but typically barricade targets, close range, not a big issue. It's this trigger squeeze. Am I fundamentally making a good trigger squeeze on this? So I'm training one thing first, and that's your trigger squeeze. Typically what happens to my students is I'll train what I call free recoil or alternative recoil management, the press and the wedge. And the press and the wedge is where you're holding the gun hard in different styles. And once they get that trigger squeeze, they go to press shooting. I used to free recoil. A lot of guys I trained used to free recoil. 95% of the time, they don't free recoil. Shooting the 308 last year in the finale, I tried one free recoil shot because I just got in a position that was awkward, and I thought, oh, yeah, we'll try it here. And I missed the target. So it's like, that didn't work. So I rebuilt the position, held the gun, pressed it, shot, hit the target. It was a moment of weakness, I guess, that I tried to free recoil. But my premise is, if I can get that new guy up to speed a little bit, what's going to happen? He's going to hold the target. He's going to start hitting some targets. He's going to recognize that he can hit those targets. He's going to build confidence. He's going to build his trigger squeeze. Now, when he gets to a barricade that he has to press, because maybe he's got to see where the bullet goes because the wind's blowing and he's not sure of his wind call, so he's going to press so he can follow the recoil. Because you're going to lose 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose the target image on a free recoil because the gun's going to move enough, unless you have it on really low power. Then sometimes you can catch it. But for the most part, he's going to start to press, and he's going to realize, hey, I'm so good at triggering this, actuating the trigger, I can now not jerk my gun off the target. I can time it a little bit, slow my wobble down. And I've always said, if you're a good match director, will set his match up so the best shooter can always hold the target. Okay, there'll be one combination of a barricade, a bag, and a target size that match director will know the best shooters are going to be able to hold the target. There's not a lot of matches I go to anymore where there's not a position that I cannot hold my crosshairs within that target of wobble. But it's skills building. You can't go out and drive a Formula One race car because you don't have the skills.
Yeah.
We're going to build the skills, and you're going to eventually get there through practice, training, practice, repetition, and eventually it just works.
So training, practice, repetition, mental strength at a match. Where does the gun come into play? Come on, guys. Don't you have Instagram accounts? Everybody loves the gun. I'm egging you on because I know it's happened to us all the time where, people literally ask us the question on social media all the time. What scope what do they ask? They'll ask, hey, I'm looking at getting a PST Gen 2 3 to 15. How far can that scope shoot?
Yeah.
And it's like, as far as you can shoot it. It's always my, it's like, it depends on how good of a shooter you are, really. You could shoot there's people who will miss a target at 100 yards with a 3 to 15, and there's people who will hit a target at 800 yards with a 1 to 6. And so when I hear a lot of this stuff, it's getting to what I'm glad we're getting at, which is the fact that the equipment matters to a certain level, which I'm curious as to what you guys will say as to like what point the equipment is important. And then, there's that point where anything beyond that is like, you got to just get your stuff together as a shooter.
There is some basic equipment that I think everybody needs to do the game, but after that, it's really, I think everybody's biggest fault is the lack of practice.
Yes.
Is not repeating your skill over and over to make it second nature is where the issues come in.
It's easy to put your information in PayPal and go online to the different websites and just keep adding things to cart and thinking, I'm getting better. Yeah. The more I click this mouse, the better I get. And it's like, well, how about more than click the trigger,
Yeah. What were you going to say, Regina? I cut you off.
Yeah, sorry,
there.
Regina.
We've got 4 buckets in our garage, and they're like big bins of crap we've ordered off the internet or that people have given us to try to use, or that I saw somebody using at a match and went, that's the secret right there.
The sauce.
I need that. A piece of equipment. And a lot of our new guys at our club matches do that too. They look like crazy gypsies, bags hanging everywhere, tripods, all kinds of stuff. And no matter how much I tell them that the people that you're seeing winning matches, watch Brousseau, he goes up with 1 bag. That's it. And hits stuff because he's practicing. I suspect he's practicing even when he tells people he's not practicing. If they would take the money that they're spending on all these extra bags and extra gear and extra crap that then they have to cart around and put it into 223 and 223 ammo, they could build those positions better. Or a 308 and practice working on their fundamentals a little bit more. Get better at using just 1 bag and learn how to stabilize your shot. I mean, I use a sling a lot for barricades rather than using a bag, but it's still just 1 piece of equipment, not carting everything up there. We got one guy in our club who's real into tripods right now because the match in Utah last month was real heavy on unstable positions with really tiny targets and heavy wind. And to some respect, he's right. A majority of the positions that those match directors built needed a tripod in order to stabilize, but a majority of the matches around the country don't. They're not like that. The match directors realize that if you're shooting off of a prop, you need a slightly larger target. You can have small targets and high winds if you're prone, but shooting a 1 to 1.5 MOA target off a rickety barricade isn't, for one, it's not safe, but 2, you're not going to have a real high hit ratio there, and you want people to hit targets so they come back to your match the next year. So they use a lot of tripods then. So now he's decided that that's the ticket and everything has to be shot with a tripod. And why won't we let him use it in a club match? So we said, fine, we'll let you use it in a club match, our 90-second stages, but you have to deploy it on the clock. So he didn't use it. So like took him 30 seconds to deploy his tripod on a video he posted up. So I said, well, let's let him use it then. It'll be fine. Let's let him be amusing for the rest of us.
You know what a tripod looks like to me?
What's that?
A crutch.
It's funny you talk about tripods, and we've already kind of covered confidence and stuff. I've been in the game for a lot less time than the other two people here talking, and I don't have the confidence when I go into a match nearly as much as I probably should work on building up a little bit more confidence. But when I go into a match and I see everybody using a tripod, my lack of confidence says, oh, shoot, I need to use my tripod on this too, even though I haven't practiced with it, and that completely screws me over. And that's why I'm actually starting to practice with it, because of some of the matches that you go to that if you don't have it, you are kind of in trouble, because very small targets on very wobbly barricades, you almost need that additional support. But it's something I never practiced with, and I found myself being almost goaded into it mentally to using it, even if I've never used one before for a rear support.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with your tripod and you don't practice it a lot, the guys who shoot off tripods good, using it for rear support, they practice it a lot. Mm-hmm. There's certain, if you get in grass, long grass, and it wants to stick, you got to know how to set the gun on the prop and be able to move your right to left without moving the tripod, because it'll stick in the grass and it'll be on 2 legs instead of 3.
Or 1 leg. I've seen people do that many times.
Yeah.
You can shoot. I don't use one. I carry one. It's got a set of Vortex binoculars on it, so I can, read Mirage and do those things. But I very, very rarely do I use one. I never used one in the finale last year. Maybe last year I used it on less than 10 shots the whole season. And if I used it, it was probably because it was like, this is the one spot where I'm just going to have to suck it up and use it. But for the most part, I don't want to use one. I do not want to rely on one. I don't want to carry one for that purpose. I typically set my matches up so there'll be a few stages you can use them on. But I kind of make them so that if you decide to use it, it's maybe going to be a little bit of a hindrance too. So if you're coming to my match in 2 weeks, it's probably not going to be a big advantage.
No,
but there'll be a dozen stages you can use it on. That it won't be banned. So most of those will be prone stages.
Yeah.
Where I didn't have an equipment ban, but why would you use a tripod on a prone stage? So, I just work it that way. So if you bring one, if you're taking a flight from somewhere to come shoot in Iowa, leave your tripod at home. You won't need it.
Noted.
I think my biggest problem with the tripods, with having stages that seem to be more reliant on tripod as rear support, is that it rules out a majority of these new guys that are coming in. They can't afford all that crap.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're lucky that they got a good running rig and that they have quality glass on there. So I would rather them pay attention to that than feeling like they need to have all this extra stuff that they really don't need. And practicing off of it once in a while. I've practiced off of mine. I've got a couple tripods, but I don't particularly like them as rear support, and I don't like stages that are designed where you need to have that as rear support in order to get hits. I think it's a cop-out on stage design and targetry, personally. But that's just me. That's my inner match director coming out.
Yeah. How about one thing that I see people talk about all the time in PRS, long-range shooting a lot, is a lot of the people that you hear talk about it, they're reloading ammunition. Do you have to reload ammunition? Because when I see that, I'm like, it's like everybody's talking about their loads that they just reloaded the other day or whatever, and this ammo that they get all into all this stuff. It's like they know everything under the sun about their velocities and BCs and all that stuff, and it's like I get how important that can be, but to me that's kind of a little bit of a I don't know if I can get into that. I don't know if I have enough time to devote to understanding all the stuff that this person understands. Like, do you have to do all that, or is that?
My opinion probably kind of differ from you guys on that one. Maybe not.
I don't think so. There's quality
no.
ammo out
Yeah.
there nowadays.
I literally went to 2 years ago. I shot with the inaugural year of the NRL. I joined, and I shot a match in Colorado. I took a 260 Ackley, and I brought factory 260 gold medal match ammo.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to shoot factory 260 and a 260 Ackley and fire form it during a 2-day National Rifle League event. I finished 7th. I think I was 7th. Is in the top 10.
Yeah.
I mean, how many guys bring 6BR loaded ammo and fire form their dasher at a match? That's the equivalent of what I was doing. And it was just like, it shot so good, it was like, I don't want to just shoot this at a range practicing. It's like, it shoots so good out of this gun, I might as well just take it to a match and fire form it. Why not? So that's what I did. So, there's if your gun likes a certain brand of factory ammunition, there's definitely factory ammunition out there that's loaded to the quality it needs to be to shoot. If you put it on your little magneto speed and you don't get single digits SDs, ignore that. If it shoots under a half inch and the SDs are within 20, go shoot it in a match. It's good enough. You might not hit, if they have an 800-yard TYL and the last target is 4 inches, I might not risk shooting at that.
Yeah.
But so we exclude maybe 3 targets in a match that it might not be capable of hitting. But it don't take much for ammo to hit 2 MOA plates at 400 yards off of most barricades.
Yeah, if you're missing that plate, it's the user.
Yeah, and when we can take our hand-loaded ammo, even our crappy hand-loaded ammo, and shoot it a mile and hit a 3-foot plate,
Right.
some pretty respectable factory ammo is going to hit that plate as well. It comes back to the shooter again, unfortunately. Look in the mirror.
Nick, how come I'm sorry, and Regina here. I was curious why Nick said his opinion would likely differ, because I heard Regina before Jim got going there say it doesn't really necessarily matter, that you don't have to reload. Nick, does your opinion differ from?
Maybe not. So I know these two both do load their own ammo.
You were
for
expecting
matches.
them to say, if you don't load, you're screwed.
So I shoot factory ammunition at matches because I know between my rifle and my ammunition, that's not the problem. You know, if I'm missing a target, it's not that. I know my rifle will consistently shoot sub half minute, and I'm completely happy with that. Like between that and the ammunition, if I'm missing a target, that's 2 minutes of angle. It's 100% the shooter, so completely scrub that. I travel enough that I don't want to spend an entire Saturday loading. I love loading. I love hand loading. I love load development, but I do not have the proper equipment to do really good hand loads at a high repetition.
Yeah.
If I loaded 250 rounds of ammunition, it's going to take me half the day. I'd rather go hang out with my family. You know, I have a hard time doing that. And you know, what I use is getting the job done very well. So, but there is I would say most of the top shooters probably are reloading for matches.
I think if you ask Regina, she'll say the same thing I am. We're hand loading because of economics.
Yeah. Oh, okay, there you go.
Well, and I shoot a caliber that there aren't a lot of options for commercially available ammunition. Nobody makes 6XE. I've tried convincing them, but they won't do it for just me. So the
Weird how
buggers.
that works.
You didn't give them the pouty face at all?
Yeah.
Pouty face. I just need a sad emoji or two, and I'll be good to go.
Yeah, right. Just a big old jar of limoncello, you'd be able to get anything you want.
Yeah. Here's limoncello, please. Yeah, and I shoot factory stuff for practice though. Got 223 and 308 factory ammo. I don't have time to load for that. I'm the queen of the last minute reloading anyway, so it's bad when you create your own hashtag for fresh ammo is the best ammo. And it's not because that's true. It's because I procrastinate. I'm like the world champ of procrastination when it comes to reloading. It just happens to work for me. That's all.
I think one thing we talked about the mental prep and all kinds of other things, and maybe we need to talk a little bit about, because Regina brings up the fact that she's a procrastinator and she reloads 2 nights before a match, or a night before. I've seen her do before.
Yeah.
2 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
They're going to leave at 8 in the morning. She's up at 2 still reloading. Oh, Tim's going to drive. I'm going to sleep.
2 days before is brass prep. 1 day before.
Nick says it takes him half a day to load 250 rounds. That's an hour. If my brass is sized and primed, it's going to take me an hour to do 250 rounds, and that's running three automated dispensers that aren't the real expensive ones. They're the $250 ones, and I run 3 of them at a time, and I just constantly dump in powder. And I try and pick a load with my nodes, so I'm within 1 or 2 tenths. They're still accurate. And that's where I'm not too concerned about single-digit SDs. If this is 39.1 or 39.2, dump it in the case. It's good enough for a match.
Yeah.
The single-digit SD thing, Jim, I know you've seen this before. We joke and call it the Vibert Reed method because they're the ones that I think I heard first say it on the internet. Most of those guys, you see those single-digit SDs on their magneto speeds, and they're bragging about how cool they are. A couple of them probably did have single-digit SDs. The rest of them shot like 15 rounds and then narrowed it down to 5 so that it looks like they have a single-digit SD. That's the trick. You too can be an internet superhero. You just have to learn how to edit.
Noted.
Yeah, just saying.
The easiest gun I ever got to shoot single-digit SDs was my 308 last year.
Yeah.
It would regularly do it, so there you go.
Single-digit SDs. This is something I hadn't even heard of until today. Yeah.
Well,
amazingly. So I spent a lot of time. On the forums on social media.
So I have a match in Nebraska, an NRL match in Nebraska this weekend. I'm actually leaving tomorrow. I'm going to meet Jerry Karloff, spend a night with him, and then we're going to drive out Friday. And unlike Regina, I loaded my ammo 2 weeks ago. And I don't know if Regina does this or not, but to me, an accurate rifle is priceless. I have multiple rifles. I build rifles. Putting a new barrel on is not a big deal. When I have one that shoots really well, it's a match rifle. It's not a practice rifle. It's not a demo rifle for train ups. Train up, I took that same 260 Ackley I shot in 2016. 2017. I had ammo loaded for it from 2016. I had 150 rounds. I wanted to burn them up. I took them to a training class, 2 training classes, and I used it as demo ammo. And when I was done, I was like, I think one was in Missouri. I demoed barricades before the students start. I hit 49 of 50 shots. I was going like, I should have saved this for a match. I was shooting 140 VLDs at like 28.90, and I'm like, this would have been great match ammo, and I just wasted it. 2 weeks later, I take it to another train up, and we shoot a mini match at the end. And normally I don't shoot those. Those are for the students. And they only take about an hour to get everybody through 5 or 6 stages. And they're like, no, shoot it, Jim, so we can watch you and see, how it's done. Oh, I think I dropped one shot, and it was the second to last shot out of 50 rounds with that ammo. And I'm just like, and we were running prone stages out to 800-900 yards and barricade stages and everything. And it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I wasted this stuff. But practice before a match. I know Regina's probably spends more time practicing than I do. I get some practice, like I said, in my train ups when I'm doing them. Here's my practice for Nebraska. I had ammo left over from the Bighorn, about 100 rounds. So now that's not enough for a match, right? Maybe it was 150. So I needed brass. So I started fire forming some factory lapua I had just to get the brass out of an old gun. So I wasn't using it in my good gun. Got the brass. Had to start a new lot of Varget. So the first thing I do is I load up some rounds and I go chronograph them because I want them to be in the same speed node because I know that's where that barrel likes to shoot, 2765 with a 140 hybrid from Berger. So I basically get it the same speed. I got a 100-yard range 17 miles from my house. I had a customer who literally only bought a trigger from me this winter and said he's got a farm that's 700 acres and he wants to set up just a screw-around range. And I told him, hey, dude, if you let me shoot out there about once before every match, I'll literally give you the targets. So we set targets up from 700 to 2,200 yards.
Nice.
And now I have this ammo I loaded. I know it's the same velocity, but I haven't tested it. And I'm going to take it to a match. I got 340 rounds loaded. I shoot at 700 yards. I get a vertical that's about 1.5 inches on the plate. I take it to 1,400. we got a kind of an IPSC looking plate that's taller, but it's only a foot wide. I dumped a mag on it. I think I put 6 out of 10 on that 1,400-yard target. And they were hitting a little low, but they all stayed in that vertical of probably 7 or 8 inches, and a few were right and left because the wind was blowing a little bit. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't shot the gun since. I'm driving to the match tomorrow. I'm going to shoot their sight in Friday, shoot 20, 30 rounds, and I'm going to shoot the match. Mm-hmm. There's no practice in between testing that ammo and going shooting. Is that what I want to do? No. I always say the best practice you can do is the day or two ahead of the match. Go out, shoot 50 or 100 rounds, get the confidence up, hit targets, in that process of preparing yourself mentally. And what I'm going to do accurate? Is it right? No. But when I get there Friday, I got 340 rounds. If I feel like I need to, after I shoot 20, if everything's working, I'll stop. Stop on confidence. Don't stop on a problem, right? If I need to shoot 100, I got 100 to shoot if I need to practice that much. And we'll get there plenty early enough. We'll have 3 hours to shoot. I'll just shoot prone targets. Mm-hmm. Feel like I'm geared back up, like I got all the rust knocked off and I'm ready to go tomorrow. Regina will probably tell you her practice regimen, I'm sure, is way more better than mine.
You're joking, right?
No, I'm not. Tell us what it is. Tell us what it is, because I want to learn.
I don't practice nearly as much as I allude to on the interwebs. Lately I've been struggling with time management, trying to finish stages in time and get my rounds off and actually get all my hits. I'm timing out before I should because I'm not practicing as much. So that's what I've been working on when we go out and practice. Try to get it down to 90 seconds, being able to get 10 shots off in 90 seconds with multiple positions. And I gear my practice towards the matches that I'm going to. So I save match books. I have a whole ton of match books saved from every match I think I've ever been to. So I pull them all out before I go to the same match again. Like, I should really have all the ones for K&M out because that's the next match I'm going to. So I can see if there's patterns. Match directors, sort of as a general rule, aren't super creative year to year. We use a lot of the same stuff, a lot of the same props, a lot of the same target distances. So it's not hard to design your practice around what's coming up. So I probably should be doing that a little bit more. I do have my match rifle. If it's shooting really good, it gets set aside and it only goes to 2-day matches. It doesn't go shoot club matches. I don't use it for anything. I have backup rifles that have allegedly burnout barrels that still shoot under a half inch. For some reason, I've decided they're burnout. They're not. I don't think I've ever actually really had a barrel go south in the middle of a match. So I use those for club matches and for practice. The ballistics are the same. They're shooting the same load at the same velocity. Everything on them is identical, from the stock to the barrel to the muzzle brake, everything. So for me, that saves the barrel life, because if the barrel's shooting good, I don't want to waste it. But I have been known to spend quite a long time trying to convince myself that it's me and not the gun, when maybe the barrel really doesn't like the combo I'm throwing in it, doesn't like the chow I'm feeding it, I guess. So eventually I spin them off.
You guys kid around a little bit about your perhaps lack of practice, but the one thing you do is shoot a lot of matches. And, so I think when some people look at high-level shooters, and the high-level shooters kind of kid around, they're like, well, I don't practice as much as I'd like to. It's like, well, yeah, but you're shooting a lot of matches, and you stay sharp at an activity by doing it. Nobody ever got better at something by just not doing it. And it even happens with simple things like if you haven't read something in a long time, and then you try to go read a book, it's like, wow, I'm really slow at reading. I've reverted back to a grade school level reading ability, but there's all kinds of things like that. But if you're shooting a lot of matches, that definitely helps a ton. I'm looking at the clock here too, and I want to make sure we keep this condensed to our normal length about. But one last thing that I heard you guys mention, or I know that I think we mentioned right before we got going, was the safety aspect of it. You guys said that there was some stuff there that you thought was pretty interesting that people would like to hear about. I'm curious what you're thinking as far as, because safety is obviously important anytime you're dealing with firearms. But what in particular do you think people don't normally think of? Or
personally, for all of us, as we grow more experience with guns and as we grow more experience shooting and going to matches, our safety level should evolve and get more rigid and strict and controlled.
Should.
And I know Nick went to a match this year, and he commented to me there's a lot of safety issues, flagging. A lot of people carry these rifles around, they put a chamber flag in it, and it's unloaded, so I can sweep it around and point it at anybody, and it doesn't matter. And, that's a problem, because we have tiers of safety in this sport. One is, it's redundant, bolt back, mag out, okay? We can visually see your bolts back, your mag's out. The next redundancy is we put a chamber flag in it, okay? Another redundancy is the RO is supposed to check for clear when you're done with the stage. The fourth one is you don't point it at anything you don't want to destroy. So with the influx of new shooters and maybe a lack of emphasis on safety by match directors, I mean, Regina will tell you in 2012 and 13 and 14, what did a safety brief sound like? I mean, they were pretty extensive about what you do and don't do. I see some of that absent or missing at matches. At the start of a match, you got tons of new shooters there. So what we are seeing at matches is, and Regina will back me up on this, we're regressing in our safety because these new people aren't learning what's expected of them. And now it's to the point where if somebody flags you and go, whoa, dude, you just flagged me. So what? There's a chamber flag in it. That's not the point.
And not the point, right.
Yeah.
I've been flagged twice with loaded rifles at matches. Both times, I did not stop till both people were thrown out of the match. Okay? Both of them were very scary. Both of them got me really pissed off, and I'm a type A personality. I get a little excitable. And my safety has evolved. One, Jacob Bynum probably gives the best safety brief out there.
Very extensive.
And Jacob can be about safety. And if I said that and Jacob maybe listens to this and hears me say it, he's probably going to look at Lisa with a drink in his hand and go, "Did you hear that? I'm kind of an and they're both going to laugh because it's true.
He'd agree with you. He'd agree with you 100%.
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
He's and it's good because I shot my first match there in 2012, and hearing it was good, and hearing it made you think. And as I take my son to some of these matches, now there's a greater importance on it too, right? Because it's not me. I'll risk a lot of stuff with me, but now it's somebody else who I love that I don't want to risk anything with. And it's just that much more important. And I got a call from a border war match just this week. A shooter, would know him well. He's gone through my train up. Complained about a shooter who had an ND, slam fires, trigger problems. Had 3 of them in a match. He pointed everyone out. The squad mom didn't DQ him. Didn't tell him to go home. And I basically said, "Why didn't you tell them your equipment's not safe? You need to leave." He goes, "I hinted at it. I just never said it." "Did you get the match director and tell him their equipment's not safe? They need to leave?" "No." "Okay. Calling me afterwards isn't going to do a whole lot of good." All right? Because when do you tell them? After they shoot somebody? After they send one over the berm and it lands in a subdivision? Okay? If you see it, you say something. I've seen it, and I've said stuff to people. I've literally gotten irate, and the worst thing I ever said to an RO wasn't, "Give me that point." Okay?
Right.
As much as the court of Facebook would like to say pros sit there and argue for points, some do. They're the bad apples in the group. They make us all look bad, right? The worst I ever yelled at an RO was when a man walked from this stage to that stage, flagging me the whole way, and I was on the 3rd stage, and I got 3 guys around me, and I said, "Would you look at that? He's flagging the shit out of us." And when he gets to the stage that's 30 yards away, he flags the ROs there who are eating their lunch and the rest of his squad, and I'm already walking to him. And then I see his bolt is down. And I say, "You just done flagged all of us, and your bolt is down. He looks down, he opens the bolt, and a round comes out. And at this time, people see what's going on, and they're looking. And both ROs got out of their little buggy, and they're turning around looking like this. I didn't walk up to him. I walked up to the ROs, and I looked him right in the face, and I said, "Did you just see what fell out of his rifle?" I go, "Now do your effing job." That's the worst I ever yelled at an RO.
Yeah.
And then I turned around to that guy, and I basically told him, "Get the hell out of here. If you're gonna do that, nobody wants you here." And he got up and left. The match director came up 5 minutes later and caught him before he hit the gate. And I don't know what was said there, but I'm sure he was trying to probably cool him off because that guy was probably a little excited that I was so excited. But it's a life and death matter.
Yeah, you're playing around with people's lives.
People have this tough guy mentality that we're all adults, we can handle it, but you can keep on saying that until somebody's head gets turned into canoe.
Adults make mistakes all the time.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you say my gun's unloaded because I have a flag in it, and you keep on doing that over and over, and maybe you have a bad stage, or you're super exhausted from like a long stage, and you forget to put that flag in there, and you close the bolt. I mean, that's how things happen.
And I don't mean to cut you off. Anybody can do it. Regina can do it. I can do it. Anybody can do it. If I do it, I certainly want somebody to announce it immediately to me. Because the last thing I want to do is walk around with a closed bolt or a mag in, or God forbid a loaded round in the chamber and flag somebody. My son Danny started shooting high power rifles at 7. He RO'd his first PRS match at 10. In South Dakota last year, one of my buddies that rode out there with me is shooting the last stage, and I'm standing there waiting for him. And my son's ROing that stage. He's actually doing the scoring. There's another RO that's watching the shooters. And I seen it all happen. My buddy goes in the last hole in the doghouse, runs the bolt forward, doesn't close it, just runs it forward, and time goes. Okay? So he just sent a round up into the chamber, and the bolt, inertia of the bolt, pushed forward and got the extractor lip over that round. He pulls the gun out, drops the mag, points the gun in the air. The RO comes up to him, and he's going to sign his score. And the bolt's stuck up because the shell is stuck in the chamber and the extractor's on it.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's not even realizing this. And my son Danny goes, "Open your bolt." And he ignores him. And Danny says, "Open your bolt." And I know he needs to open that bolt. I know there's a round in it. I'm standing there waiting to control this rifle. And finally I see my buddy look at Danny like, "What's this little annoying trying to sign my score?" He opens his bolt and the round comes out. And the look on his face said it all.
Yep.
Just, I want somebody to say the same thing for me if I do it. I mean, I literally went on a hunting trip to North Dakota, and in North Dakota, you don't need one in the chamber. We're coyote hunting out of the trucks. You can't keep one in the chamber. You can have the magazine loaded. And I literally rode around all week like that. So when we were done, I never emptied the magazine. It was an internal box. I just pushed the first top shell down and closed the bolt. Okay? That was really stupid. So now I'm going to drive into Wisconsin with a loaded magazine, coming home. And literally, I go home, and I had just done it. It was a Ruger, and I had done my own trigger job on this. This was before I was a gunsmith. This is like 15, 20 years ago, before I shot competitively or anything. And so I'm in the basement, and I was on 80 acres, all in the woods, out by myself, and I'm aiming the gun at the bird feeder out the window, right? And the bolt's already closed, and I just go click, because I was like feeling that sweet trigger I did, right? And I thought, man, I don't know if I should work on that some more or not. And I literally racked the bolt, put a round in, aimed at the bird feeder, and went, boom! Shot the window out of the house, the basement window. Okay? And my wife comes downstairs. And I'm telling you this is an embarrassing story, but I'm telling you this, anybody can do it.
Oh, yeah.
My wife comes downstairs, halfway downstairs, it was like a raised ranch. She's on the stairs, it just got quiet up there. And I had my first child then too, she's about 2 years old running around up there. And Cindy comes down the steps and she goes, "Jim, what are you doing?" And I don't lie to my wife. It's a good policy to have if you want to have your
Not a
marriage.
bad one.
So I said, I'm just shooting out the window because I had just shot out the window.
Quite literally.
So she literally didn't believe me. Like, why would he be shooting out the window? Like, maybe if there's a coyote running around in the back or whatever. She walks downstairs and she sees the window and she says, "Oh my God, you really shot out the window." And she looked at my face and she knew it was like not supposed to happen. So she just walked back upstairs and went away. And I was just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I did that."
Ah, jeez.
That's brutal, man. Well, I appreciate. Now, one thing too, I see our time creeping up, and actually, I know I got a hard punch out too because we're getting towards the end of the day on this one. So, rarely do I ever like to end a podcast on a hard cut. But we'll leave it up to if our guests here, Jim and Regina, have any last final closing thoughts before we bring this one in for a landing. You guys feel free to pop it out. This has been super interesting stuff. I think a lot of people out there need to hear a lot of this stuff, but. Yeah, we'll let you guys bring it in for the landing.
I talked enough. We'll let Regina close this out.
What do you got, Regina? What profound?
I think I know what match Nick was talking about, where people were flagging people. I think it's a inherent level of complacency in some parts of the country. Other parts don't seem to have that so much. My club started at a range that's inside a city park. So you have an AD and ND. To us, it's the same thing. It's an ND regardless if it's your equipment or your booger hook. It's a DQ. So after that match that I think Nick was talking about, I came back and said, we need to be much more strict because we have so many new people. And we started reviewing some of the rules for other leagues and other clubs and adopted the NRL rule of if you muzzle somebody, it's a match DQ. We don't care. You need to be in control of your rifle. We go over the 4 firearm safety rules at every match. We ask to make sure everybody understands. We got pros on each squad, so it shouldn't happen. We set up staging areas for rifles. So you got a safe place to put your gun. Your gear doesn't need to be there. Your rifle can be left alone. It's not going to go anywhere, do anything. So go mess with your crap someplace else. And I like what Jim has done at some of his matches as well, with having check sheets that go with the squad. So it goes to the next RO. And if you have so many of these violations, then you're done. If you torch one off and I let you keep shooting, not only am I irresponsible, but I could be liable. All those little safety waivers that we sign that make us all feel good will be the kindling for the fire that's going to be torched underneath your feet when the lawyers get a hold of you. So I won't let anybody continue to shoot. That's why we don't call them ADs. They're NDs to us. And if you muzzle somebody, you're much more likely to torch one off when you shouldn't also. So just my 2 cents.
That's good points. Good points. We appreciate it, guys. Thanks again for coming on with us. Anybody out there listening, if you want to hear more about this topic, more PRS topics and long-range shooting and all that good stuff, definitely keep letting us know. Some of this stuff, like we said, came from listener feedback and stuff on our Instagram page, and then also great ideas here from Jim and Regina as well. So we'll cap this one off. Thanks again, Jim and Regina, for coming out. Appreciate you guys being on here, and that one. And Nick, too. Nick, you're always here, though.
I'm always here. Yeah, you can't get rid of me, so it's fine.
With that, happy hunting and shooting out there, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Thanks. All right, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Vortex Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date on the latest happenings over here at the Vortex Nation podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. Again, everybody, thanks, and happy hunting and shooting. We appreciate it. Have a good one.